thank goodness I don't have a girlfriend, because this would have been a terrible date night movie. Hello everybody, it's me, Scoop, and Together really surprised me. Now, if you've heard about this movie, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't make the best impression on you. There are rumors going around, non-insubstantial, that the entire plot of the movie was stolen by Allison, Brie, and Dave Franco from a writer who they actually cut out of the project, and that's pretty bad. On top of that, the trailers in general just don't look super great, in my opinion. Now, it's not for me to speculate on these rumors, but from the outside looking in, if I had to guess, it probably just was another case of twin films, something we see in Hollywood all the time, where two writers happen to come up with the same idea at about the same time. There are plenty of other examples for you to look to, like Ants in a Bug's Life, or The Haunting of Sharon Tate in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or the goated duo of Deep Impact and Armageddon. Now, as for the trailers, my main impression from them walking into this movie was that it was gonna be gross. A couple are not getting along super well, and they just start fucking melting together or something. They might also be on vacation at a log cabin, or they just live there. I don't really know. But believe me, there is a lot more going on here than just that. Kinda. After actually seeing Together, I think a more proper log line would be, just kind of something like, while on the brink of going their separate ways, couple Allison, Brie, and Dave Franco move out of the city to the remote countryside, where strange forces they can't control begin to push the two closer together than they ever thought possible. And I think push the two together is an important distinction over the fact that they just start fucking melting together, because, like I said, there's a lot more going on here than just melt. First and foremost, I think it's important to say that Together is pretty predictable. It follows the tried and true Hollywood horror format, but this is honestly a compliment more than anything else. While I think the horror genre has done a lot to keep people coming to theaters through this COVID streaming lull or whatever you want to call it, it's great that we're getting all this new experimental horror, but a lot of this stuff just doesn't feel like it's sticking, and I think it's just gonna start to make audiences feel exhausted, and eventually they'll just stop showing up entirely. So it's pretty great to get maybe 2 or 3 of these a year that just follow the simple formula, but they really nail it, and they leave the audience walking away feeling satisfied. Audiences go in knowing exactly what to expect, the movie delivers it to a T, they had a great time, they'll come back for the next one. We need a few like that. There were so many horror trailers that played before this movie, so many I'm going full Italian on them, and a lot of them just looked exhausting. I'm sorry, Osgood Perkins. I've defended Longlegs as long as I could, but The Monkey is one of the worst goddamn movies I've ever had the displeasure of sitting through in the theater, and Keeper really doesn't look all that much better. Please stop casting Tatiana Maslany in roles where I have to hope that she's not gonna die, because it just doesn't work. But Shelby Oaks looked fucking sick. I will be there day one for you, Christopher. And I would also like to clarify that when I say Together is predictable, I don't mean you're gonna watch the first 5 minutes of this movie and know everything that's about to happen. It's just that whenever some reveals start getting set up or Chekhov's guns get loaded, you're gonna be able to pick up on it pretty much immediately. And while some people might find this a bit boring, I just really like it. To me, it's the movie equivalent of when you're at the end of a video game, so you go back to kind of the early to maybe mid-level areas with all of your top-level gear, and you just start working your way through all the bad guys. You can just demolish the battlefield. Yes, I'm glad that there are greater challenges out there, but you cannot deny how satisfying this experience can be. I should also definitely add that both Dave Franco's eyebrows and Allison Brie are giving great performances here. I was honestly a little worried because they are a real-life couple, so I think role-playing in such a strange couple movie scenario might be difficult, but no, they pretty much nailed it. Dave Franco comes across as just really emotionally weak, and so you fully understand Allison Brie's frustration with this aspect of him, and they play this together so well, but they can also still have amazing chemistry together when the scene calls for it. And I think these two and their performances are about equally as important in making this movie work as the structure is, and how this movie knows exactly what the audience needs to see and how much of it they need to see. Like I said, the trailers are pretty misleading. There's a lot more going on here than just two people melting together, but the trailers also really hype up how nasty this movie is, and it's really not that bad. At no point in this movie is there so much shit going on screen where you have to cover your eyes or look away or you're really, really squirming. There's not too much of that. The movie understands it gives you just enough to start feeling a little stressed, think it's a little nasty before it either cuts away to a less gratuitous shot or just cuts to the next scene entirely, and it works really well pretty much every single time. I was also a little concerned after this movie's opening. It follows that Hollywood formula of making the opening few minutes of your horror film essentially a short film that kind of teases out a few concepts you're going to see explored in the main film, and the one that opens together it's really not great. There's like two dogs who have an intense stare-off with each other, and then later their owner walks in and finds them merging together, kind of like that scene out of The Thing. It's not very scary. It felt like it gave away way too much, and I don't know, I didn't jive with it. But no, the movie is a lot better than this opening would also have you believe. Together's main story ends up being far more interesting than what they show in this opening, because the writers made a very smart but simple decision in how they sort of set up the initial horror film elements between the couple that allows things to have a sense of mystery to them and to play out at a rate that fits the pretty tight hour 45-minute runtime without ever feeling dragged out or like they were rushing through it. The pacing here is just pretty perfect, and I, like I said, really enjoyed it. It just felt very engaging the whole way through. And speaking of The Thing, I'd really like to praise the effects present in Together. I really couldn't tell you how much of this was practical versus CGI because all of it looked great. I think still images of some of these effects, you'd probably think it wouldn't be too difficult to do practically, but in motion, a lot of this stuff has to kind of squirm and contort, and I just don't know how you do that without CGI. But none of these effects ever looked bad, which is especially impressive when you consider they're pretty much only working with effects focused on human skin, which is like one of the hardest things to recreate besides maybe eyes. And yeah, it all looked incredible. Super impressive stuff. The climax of the film especially, I could imagine, was really difficult to pull off between filming it and then, painting or sculpting over it with CGI. I don't entirely know how they did it, but god dang, it looked really impressive. It hit that perfect balance of cool, but also that is gross and weird and I don't quite like that. They nailed it. And in terms of Together's themes, there's definitely a lot to talk about and discuss here. I saw this movie alone just because it was a very last-minute ticket purchase, but a lot of people went to see it either with a significant other or with a group of friends, and pretty much everybody stuck around after. They were hanging out in the theater lobby or in the parking lot, standing around discussing what they thought of the movie, so I was sort of eavesdropping a little bit as I was on my way to the car. And not only is this just a great energy to have walking out of a theater, it gives you like that proper theatrical audience experience, but it's just a great sign that the movie really connected with its audience. I think I'd need a little more time to just sit and digest what the themes of Together really are, but I will do a bit of a discussion here. So there's this one line that gets repeated in a couple of different contexts throughout the film, but the first time we hear it is at the very beginning when Allison, Brie, and Dave Franco are arguing with each other, and Allison Brie says she can't decide if it's better for them to cut their relationship off now because it'll only hurt more if they have to do it later. And by the time the credits roll, I really couldn't decide if that would have been the right decision or not. Obviously, they don't break up at the start of the film, otherwise the film wouldn't happen at all, but I won't spoil anything else about it. It's just the hope core in me wanted to take away from the movie that throwing away a 10-year relationship over a period, not really specified how long it is in the movie, but a period of just kind of a lack of passion is not the best move. You gotta get back in there, you gotta work to reignite that passion, and if you can, you'll come out of it stronger than ever. Together. However, this is a horror film, so I would kind of err on the side of cynicism, which says that if they had broken up in the beginning, they wouldn't have had to go through a horror movie scenario, which usually is the best option for everybody involved. It's just that the ending, which once again, I won't spoil, it makes things very complicated. By the credits roll, you could make a long-ass pros and cons list about what's good if they stay together, what's good if they break up, or, vice versa, and I really think that that's the point. It's supposed to be a bit ambiguous. There's no solid definitive answer because every relationship is different. And I really like that idea. I think some people are going to walk out of this movie and realize it might be time to call things off, and others are going to come out of it and say, man, I've been slacking. I need to do better for them because that'll make us be better together, and I'm going to get on that. Personally, I am single as a Pringle, so it's really not for me to say. And normally with horror films, by this point in the video, I'd start going into a bit of an ending explained, or creature, villain, monster explained, but Together is very straightforward, so that would mostly just be a plot summary, and there's not really a need to do all that. The one thing I would say, still not, spoilers or anything, is that I love how we get just enough answered. We get the what and the why, but not really the how. So what I mean by this is everything within the context of the film and its story goes explained as much as we need. It all makes sense. It's very interesting. It's, well explored and delivered in a great way to the audience. But there's never a moment where some grand villain shows up and gives their speech about how
1 trillion years ago, a meteorite landed in this very spot, leaving behind the magical essence.
There's none of that bullshit. It leaves enough unanswered to leave some room for the audience to speculate, talk about it, think about it once the film is over, but generally when the credits roll, you're going to walk away feeling like you saw a complete story and you're going to feel very satisfied by it. It's just a really solid balance, and that is probably the best way to describe Together. It's nothing genre-defining or groundbreaking, but everything it does very well. It's super well constructed, has some great performances, great moments of tension. It's just a really solid summer package that I'd really recommend to any horror fan or anybody looking for a crisp summer thriller to watch with their boys that just has a little bit of nasty to it. So, overall, I'd give it 4 stars. This really was a pleasant surprise. I did not have the highest hopes going in, but I think this is one I'm going to be returning to when it hits streaming pretty quickly. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of Smile 2, not because of like the contents of the film or the structure, anything like that. It's just that you can tell this was made with a lot of love, and it may be a bit formulaic, but it is just so downright entertaining, and it tries to keep you guessing as much as possible while still being sort of on a predictable path, so you know what to expect. It's not blowing your mind, but it is giving you a damn good time at the theater. It is a comfort horror film, if you will. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What did you think of the ending? Do you think this couple needs to stay together? Should they break it off? What would be the right choice? Genuinely, I would love to discuss that. Really, any other thoughts you have about the movie, drop them down below. We'll talk about it. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you enjoyed it, even more than that. Thank you all very much for watching, and keep it crispy.